Welcome back to another episode of Spank Ranch Garage. This is my beloved Spank wagon. It's an E39. Well, it's a 528i. It's got an M54 B30 turbo swapped into it, running on MS43. Coilovers, welded diff, hydro, kind of just basic stuff. But anyway, it's in the shop today because it's got a dead misfire that was intermittent and now it is steady. So it should be easier to fix. Read the codes on a generic code reader. It's saying open circuit on injector 6. These are fairly new injector dynamic 1000s, but they do have these cheese ball adapters on them. Kind of see it there. Cheese ball adapter. Was never a fan of them in the first place. We'll see if that's acting up or do I have something else going on. All right, so on the old Horrible Freight scan tool, first code, cylinder 6 misfire. And then an 0206, injector circuit open, cylinder 6. Let's scan this with BMW scan tool. All right, this thing has an absolute crap ton of codes, misfires on various cylinders. I don't know what 210 is, I gotta look that up. It's got injector codes, it's got coil codes, the EWS, that one is not valid. All kinds of stuff. So it does go into quite a limp mode when this condition happens. And if you look at the fault conditions for most of these, 4,300 RPMs, 700 milligrams of stroke. The way this math is scaled, that's pretty high load. That's probably about 370 horsepower or so. 838, that's even higher when it through whatever this code is. So originally this condition was happening when I would roll into boost really hard, maybe 1 out of like 60 times, and then it's becoming more frequent. So I'm gonna have to clear these codes and see what comes back. Cleared the codes, started it. It started its misfiring again, luckily. And when we read them out, the only code we're really getting is this injector cylinder 6. So we have to run down that path kind of as I expected. All right, so the one thing I did is I swapped the injector adapter from cylinder 6 to cylinder 1, and we're still having the problem on cylinder 6, and then you rev it up a little bit and it eventually throws the misfire code for it. So nothing strange here. Let's do a quick resistance check on cylinder 6. 0.9 ohms or 9 ohms seems reasonable. Let's check cylinder 5. These injectors are very new. I might have 3,000 miles on them. So I wouldn't expect an issue. 9 ohms on the money. And I'm testing it through the adapter as well, so it also tests that. 9 ohms on the money. So quality ID 1000 consistency there. Let's give her the old back probe treatment. That is the wire. It's got 0.5 ohm of resistance. Wasn't really hoping to see that. Well, it's good and it's bad. So, is there a connection problem in the harness? And by moving it around, we have completed the circuit again. I don't know. So we know we got 0.5 ohm through the harness. I should be able to check power through the injector and back through the harness at the ECU, and I should have like 9.5 if you add everything up. Okay, 9.6. All right, so I also need to have key on, engine off. I should have 12 volts through the injector back to the computer, which I do, right? That's cylinder 6. I also back probe cylinder 1 for some tests. So I got power there. The computer's got a driver in it that's gonna pull that down and fire the injector. Should. So the multimeter is wired up in current mode, so the power is flowing through the multimeter, and it is jumpered to ground. So when I touch the high lead to the injector output, it should pull the injector to ground, open the injector, and we should be able to read the current across the meter here. And hopefully, if everything's quiet, you can hear the injector click. Yep, look at that. 1.2 amps, 1.1 amps. You can hear it click. Let's check cylinder 1, make sure it's the same. Beautiful. Okay, so that means to me that the engine harness handles the power. Supply voltage is there. Really, to me, that proves the whole harness is okay as it sits. Now, keep in mind, we did just jostle a bunch of crap around, and this was an intermittent problem. So now I'm going to go ahead and clear the codes again, start the car up. Hopefully, it still misses on cylinder 6. If it doesn't, then I'm really going to be a little pissed that I got to play with this thing more. Gosh dang it. Of course, it runs perfect, man. No codes, of course. Man, the curse of intermittent things. All right, I've been driving it for like an hour, and we're missing on cylinder 6 again. Let's get back to the action. I cleared the code while it's running. Never shut the car off. It's dead miss on cylinder 6. Clear the code, it starts running fine again. These computers will do various protection techniques. If it thinks a coil's bad, an injector's bad, there's a steady miss, you don't want to do catalyst damage, whatever. And it makes troubleshooting them tricky because I'm not going to be able to put a scope on that and see what's happening if it keeps killing the injector driver as soon as it thinks something happened. Engine running. Cylinder 6, 3. I don't see any anomalies here either. This little bit of noise is on the power line when the other injectors are opening and closing. That's totally normal. Lame. Oh, there it is. Hear it? Shut that cylinder right off. All right, well, that's something. All right, it's a bunch of days later on this car. You know, I left off with fighting a cylinder 6, misfire, open circuit, injector, you know, that kind of thing. Ended up changing the ECU, got involved with a whole bunch of other projects, let it sit. But I've been driving it back and forth to work, and this misfire has moved to cylinder 1. And I think that's a little coincidental because that's where I moved to test cylinder 6. I moved the cylinder 6 injector adapter to the cylinder 1 position. Nothing changed, you know, everything kind of stayed the same. So I said, all right, it's not that. In the meantime, I put fresh plugs in it. I moved some coils around because I'm starting to go down this path of maybe the open injector code is a result of the ECU detecting a misfire and shutting the injector off, because they do that. So kind of went down that rabbit hole, been down a bunch of other rabbit holes off film, until today, this thing developed a very, very steady miss on cylinder 1. Steady enough that I was able to get it home and get it on the dyno and replicate this and finally catch it on the scope. Because every time I'd open the hood on this damn thing, it starts running perfect again. It's been like a 4-week hunt for this stupid misfire. So I think I got it figured out now. We'll go over how I got there and how I'm gonna fix it, and then we'll see if it's actually fixed. Might be, might not be. All right, that's a dead steady miss. Got an amp clamp on the control signal. You can see my pulse is here. If I play with this connector, hear that? Missed a couple times. I'll try to do it again. I know there's something wrong with the connection between the harness and injector 1, but I could not prove it. Every time I would have this thing on the scope, I mean, this car would be running with dead misfire. I get it set up on the scope and it runs flawlessly, would not make a single misfire. What I found is I was back probing the signal wire with a T-pin here. Pull the T-pin out, wiggle the connector around, I can finally get the car to act up. I put the T-pin back in, it straightens right out. That's a clue. But anyway, to prove it, I did have to use one of these wire poker hole maker things. I will seal that back up. I'm not a fan of these, but they do have their time and place, because with this, I was able to keep the entire harness intact up here and manipulate it and I was able to prove the misfire. Now, I'm gonna take this inside and show you guys a lot better what this means because it's too bright out here. Okay, let's take a look here at what we have. So across the top, our blue line is our injector control voltage. So these spikes that you see downwards towards 0 volts, this is when the injector driver is on, pulling it to ground, forcing the injector open, and the spike on the other side is the inductive flyback from the coil collapsing. And then along the bottom we have this red line here. This represents the current that the injector is drawing, and then obviously it creeps up as the injector opens and closes. So these details, these are not meant to be detailed, it's just meant to represent that an event is happening. So what you see on the screen here is representing when the engine is idling properly and firing every revolution. And then we will skip to when I start to manipulate the wiring. On the injector number 1, you'll see here on the right side we have our first anomaly. So let's go a little further. And here we capture it. We have a dip in voltage here, and then we have a large dip in voltage here where we lose our 13 volts at the injector and we drop down to maybe 3 volts, and then it comes back up and we drop down again. But you'll notice that even while we have this inductive spike here, or this pulled to 0 spike right here at the bottom of this, if you look at the current on the injector, you should have a spike here and you don't. So there was no power actually moving at that point, and same here. You have no current spike, meaning that injector did not move. So what this tells me, by seeing this little blue spike on the bottom here and this, what's left of this spike here, the computer was still asking for the injector to move, but it did not, because we had no voltage through the injector and therefore no current. And if we move forward to the next frame, you'll see that's evident again here. So if you can imagine here, I'm driving down the road and this engine's vibrating like crazy and all these things are going on, and this voltage is dropping in and out of the injector like this, we're going to have a lot of misfires. And being that these ECUs are so sensitive to it, they detect it right away and they put a stop to it. So I'm really fortunate to catch it here these couple times and finally understand what's going on. So this car used to have, you know, the standard Bosch style injector connector, but you notice they came with like a clip that you had to pry off. I replaced them all with these, you know, nicer reusable ones like a normal car would have. BMW never uses them on these motors for whatever reason. But that forced me to use this cheese ball adapter here to get back to the injector dynamics injectors. So I do have a set of pins and connectors here to rebuild the whole harness and do it the proper way. The only reason I didn't do it at first is because I didn't know if I was going to be switching between injectors, and all my other injectors have the standard plug. Only these IDs have that plug. So anyway, I guess it's time to get with the times, hack the harness up, put the proper plugs on, and I think we'll be out of the woods on this one. All right, it's been a length of time, maybe an hour, whatever. But anyway, these are all on here now. These all clip in like factory. No hokey boy adapters to deal with. Sounds great, runs very smooth. Just take her for a test drive. All right, so what did I learn here? Well, I learned a bunch of things. One, these factory computers, once you're well above stock power level, the misfire detection and accuracy is all thrown out of whack. So basically, This was calling it a cylinder 6 misfire initially, and then misfires on all kinds of other cylinders. I've had it on every cylinder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it was making me think all kinds of things. Maybe we got a crank sensor issue. Maybe we have, an issue with the reluctor wheel on the crankshaft. I'm thinking all this stuff. Wow, something's really causing this car to misfire on all 6 cylinders. Though I couldn't feel it or hear it when I was driving. Later, I determined that those are false, and when you scale these ECUs to make 400, 600, 700 horsepower, all those algorithms to detect misfires are kind of out the window. As for detecting which cylinder it is, now it still detects that there's a misfire, and I'm glad it did. However, it was incorrect about what cylinder it was. Once we got it all figured out and realized it's cylinder 1, the connection got bad enough that it was misfiring under daily driving conditions way before boost. 2,000 RPMs, 35% throttle, it would start to misfire. And then when the ECU threw the code, all of a sudden, oh, it's cylinder 1, and it's guaranteed cylinder 1. And it would put it over and over again. I would clear it, do it again, clear it, do it again. It was very confident it was cylinder 1. I'll be damned, I pop the hood, I play with the cylinder 1 injector harness, boom, there's the misfire, there's the problem. So when you're modifying these cars, don't trust the misfire codes you're getting, but trust that there is a misfire. I do believe that's true. Thanks for watching Spank Grant's Garage, and see you next time.